Tell me what you see here, Chris. Let's take a look.
Myself?
When I wake up in the morning and the alarm gets out of warning, I don't think I'll ever make it on time. By the time I grab my books and I give myself a look, I'm at the corner just in time to see the bus fly by. It's alright, 'cause I'm saved by the bell.
Hello and welcome back to Saved by the Bell. Boxing, neither right, neither left, and you know the rest. So it's been a while since I made a video, so I thought I'd do one this week just to talk about some topics and news that's happening this week in the world of boxing. So a few talking points to talk about. So Gennady Golovkin is coming back, fighting a lesser opponent in Rolls. Is it something that we clamoured for? No, it's not. Is it something we've clamoured for Golovkin to come back? Yes, it is. We all like to see Golovkin, whether he's uphill or downhill. We don't really know at this point in time. Many people have said he's over the hill and he's on the come down now and he's on the slide. Now he's coming back to regain that middleweight title. IBF, WBA, WBO, WBC, whatever it is, that's what he's coming for. And the big news is he's changed his trainer. So Abel Sanchez is out the door now. From what I've read, Abel is not too happy about this. There's been a lot said from his part about Gennady Golovkin, but he tries to rise above it, even though there is some small digs in there. Now, Golovkin has signed a deal with DAZN, so we knew this comeback was imminent. And it tends to be that when, and we've seen a trend of this, is when boxers take some time away and they recover from losses or they're trying to rebuild, they tend to change these trainers. Now, we don't know who the trainer is going to be yet, but I'm sure there's a lot of trainers out there that would love to work with Gennady Golovkin. There's talk about that he wants the trilogy with Canelo. With those being on the same platform, that's a distinct possibility that could happen again. I, for one, would like to see it again, so let's hope they can make that happen. But I think, obviously, the opponent that they've named for the next fight is not, he's not a standout name, but I think it is a rebuilding job. And I think every fighter deserves, after a layoff, deserves to come back in a lesser opponent and not just to jump straight into the lion's den. There's very few fighters that would actually do that because there is a rebuilding part. Now he's going to be working with a new trainer. Now he's got to go back into camp. Now he's got to get back to that fitness. Now he's got to get rid of that ring rust and get ready and get at peak condition and peak shape and peak skills to take on possibly the winner of Canelo Jacobs or possibly maybe Billy Joe Saunders for that fight. Now there's an opening, so we'll just have to wait and see. But with the deal with Billy Joe Saunders for ESPN, it's going to again make it very difficult. And constantly we see that the politics of boxing are just getting in the way of making these mega fights. But Golovkin, Canelo is a possibility because of their shared platform on DAZN. So Anthony Joshua, well, we're meant to rename his opponent. I don't know whether it's today or tomorrow. I think we've pretty much got a pretty good insight into it. We know it's not going to be Pulev and Dillian White, or it's not going to be Ortiz now because Ortiz apparently asked for the same money that Gerald Miller got. Now, that's interesting because I think, in a way, he has a right to ask for that sort of money. Anyone that's coming in, there's two ways of looking at it. There's one, you could look at it and say, I'm saving the day here. I'm making this card happen. I'm a decent enough name, whoever you are, to put on this and to demand the sort of money that they want, which obviously Ortiz wanted and Dillian White wanted. There's been other names, Kanaki, but then he says he's not going to have enough time, if there was a hand issue, I think. So, and then there's the other way of looking at it, where you would probably think where Michael Hunter's coming from, is for someone getting the chance to fight, and to fight for the unified heavyweight belts, which is something Michael Hunter was a long way away from getting to. He would, whatever number he was on the list, but he was a long way down. So it's like, this is almost like Rocky 1 when Apollo Creed calls out Rocky Balboa to fight for the world heavyweight title, a no one. He's not a no one, obviously, but you know, it's like a lottery ticket win. This is something that could definitely change a fighter's life. Now, the two names that seem to be at the forefront now is Hunter and Ruiz Jr. Me personally, I mean, I'm not a fan of either fight, but the fight's got to happen, and I understand that they've got to bring in an opponent. Now, Ruiz Jr. fought at the weekend, looked all right, never looks great aesthetically, never looks pleasing to the eye. He's got pretty fast hands. I guess he carries some power, but not great power. I think he beat Dimitrenko, who's a tough guy. But let's be honest, he's not. I don't think anyone they're going to bring in at this point in time is going to be a real test for Anthony Joshua. However way they cook it, saying, well, he's prepared for one fighter, so it's going to be different preparing for another. A fighter who's got a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and he's going to try 100,000,000% more than he necessarily would. Yeah, I kind of get it, but I've talked about it. If your ability doesn't match that, then that's going to be a tough job. And you're catching Anthony Joshua in his prime, you know, in his physical prime, in his mental state, and he's probably can develop his skills even more. But physically and mentally, he's really on point. He's a winner. He's a champion. He's unbeaten. So, you know, for Ruiz to go in there, for Hunter to go in there, it's a tough task. And I don't see both of them lasting very long. We know that Ruiz went 12 rounds with Joseph Parker, and some say he possibly won that fight. But let's be honest, you know, if you look at the tail of the tape, and that there really is no great matchup between them. You know, there's gaps in class I see there. But he has to, you know, Eddie Hearn has to pull in an American. Kanaki would have been good because he's from New York, a lot of Polish support. They didn't want it. Ortiz would have been good because he's known to the American audience, having fought Wilder, seen as a top 5 fighter, very dangerous. So people would give him more of a chance and think it would be more of a competitive fight. So then you've got Hunter, who I believe is from California. I mean, there's a lot of hype around Hunter, and a lot of people like Michael Hunter. They think he's a good fighter. For me, I just don't think he's on that level. I think, okay, he's only been beaten once by the great Usyk, but that's completely different. He beat Piccoli. You know, it's you know, I'm not buying into it at all. Ruiz Jr., okay, has fought for the world title again. He's lucky enough to be able to maybe to have the chance to fight for it again. Big Mexican support. So we'll bring people. He's American. So again, it kind of ticks a few boxes. But let's be honest, that fight is not competitive. But we can't blame Anthony Joshua. We can't blame Eddie Hearn because, you know, unfortunately, this is the way it is. And then looking at what Wilder's done with no pull-out opponent and what Fury's done with no pull-out opponent, you know, this is not actually compare. If you think Anthony Joshua against Ruiz Jr., Wilder against Brazil and Fury against Schwartz, really, that's kind of the better fight. I think that is like the better fight because I think Ruiz Jr. is more tested. If you bring Hunter into it, I think it drops down a little bit of a level. So it's going to be interesting to see who it is, but we can be kind of guessing who it's going to be now. So it's not going to be any great shock out the blue like when they announced that Kell Brook's going to fight Golovkin or that Canelo's going to fight, you know, Amir Khan. You know, it's not going to be a great shock like that, and we're not going to wake up going, oh, I can't believe it, unless they threw in like Usyk, and Usyk was going to do it. That would get the juices flowing. That would get everyone excited, but obviously that's going to happen because he's in a fight with Carlos Takam. So, Dubois fights this weekend. I'm doing another video about the fights this weekend if I get a chance. And we know that Joyce has signed with Frank Warren. Now, this is interesting. I think it's a good move for Joyce. Joyce is highly rated by a lot of professionals. And it's funny because before he went to Sanchez, his style was very different. There was a lot of movement. You could almost see, you know, there was a lot more body movement and, you know, but then when he went to Sanchez, he was a bit more planted, his hard shots coming in. And I didn't really like that about him. When I first watched him, when he fought Lewison. There was a bit more movement about him, you know. But all of a sudden the style changed again. But now he's moved again and gone to Adam Booth. Now I think Adam Booth's a good trainer, likes defensive fighters, likes his fighters not to get hit. So hopefully he'll bring that movement back into Joe Joyce and make him more of a moving target than compared to his last fight where he wasn't, where he was very straight on and very orthodox. And I'd like to see him, because we've seen him do the flips in the ring, so he's quite an agile fella, quite an athletic fella for a big guy. So it'd be nice to see him have better footwork and move that a bit more. And the problem is he's what, I think he's 32. So he's in a funny position now that there's talk. Fighting now with Frank Warren, which is good, which is going to open up doors hopefully on the ESPN. Will it get him a world title shot? Well, no. Again, it's politics. Can they make deals with DAZN? Can they make deals with Showtime? This is a whole thing, you know. The only person he's got, you know, top end of the game is Tyson Fury. So it'll be interesting to see how he goes. But it's been agreed that a title fight between Dubois and Joe Joyce for the British title. Now, it's a funny fight, really. I think it's a good fight. It's a fight I'd like to see. For one, I'd like to see Daniel Dubois tested by someone, and Joe Joyce is definitely a test for him. There's no doubt about that. They're kind of on the same level in the career, even though their ages are different. You know, and Joe Joyce has such good amateur pedigree. So it's kind of interesting, but you can see why this fight has happened, because now they're both under Frank Warren, so that British title fight can happen and hopefully will happen. But it's a funny one for Joe Joyce, because if he loses, he's lost at domestic level. And at his age and the way that we're trying to progress him, it's kind of like, what do you do after that? You know, you then become, you know, a domestic level fighter. And I'm not saying he's not a domestic level fighter, but the way his name has been talked, he's been talked with better opponents, with possible world title challenges, European challenges, you know, higher level fights. What you would call higher level fights than the British title. I like the fact that he's going for the British title. I love it, and I think it's really good. But if he loses, there's a lot to lose on the line. Daniel Dubois, there isn't really. Okay, you know, career-wise, they're meant to be on the same sort of level, but Daniel Dubois is very young, and you know, he's kind of green, and it's going to take time for him. You know, he's got all the time in the world, whereas Joe Joyce hasn't. So I think it's more of a risk for Joe Joyce than it is for Daniel Dubois. But it's nice to see these two unbeaten fighters getting in the ring, and Frank Warren willing to put them in the ring. So that's kind of nice. So that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Amir Khan, obviously, we're getting over. He'll be getting over the defeat at the weekend. There's a lot of hate for him. There's always a lot of hate for Amir Khan, but especially now to say he's a quitter. Where's he going to go from here? I think that, you know, I've heard interviews, can't remember who said it, but I think it might be even Eddie Hearn that said it, that you know, he's not gonna, or I think, no, it was Bunsen Costello podcast, and they were talking about, and they were saying, you know, Steve Bunce was saying that he's not gonna, you know, take a tick-over fight like a Le Greco or a Vargas, you know what I mean, for very little money. You know, the next, you know, it'll have to be a big money, big fight from one to another. That's kind of what Amir Khan likes. He likes to go from one big fight to another. He doesn't really like these lower level fights. And coming to the end of his career, he want to make as much money as he possibly can. So it would have to be a big fight to bring him back. There's talk of Kell Brooks signing for ESPN, which he said would make the fight between himself and Kell Brook very difficult because of different networks. And again, we go back to the same old shit. Politics are stopping fights. So that fight could be even further away now. But although if Amir Khan is a free agent, maybe he can go to ESPN. I think if the money's right, Amir Khan will do it. You know, I think he's at that point now where he just wants to cash out, and he's going to cash out in the biggest fights possible. But if the money's not there, he ain't going to go into training camp, because I don't think he really likes training anymore. So the victor over Amir Khan was obviously Crawford, Crawford says he wants to fight Errol Spence. But again, politics. Al Heyman and Bob Arum don't have a good relationship. Al Heyman is not going to let one of his star boys go over to ESPN and fight on there. Unfortunately that's not going to happen. So yeah, I don't see that fight happening in the very near future, which is quite disappointing, because obviously you want the best to test against the best, and they're seen as definitely the two best in that division, and the two best that possibly pound for pound in the world at the moment. So that's going to be really interesting. So anyway, that's kind of a roundup of the news. I hope you enjoyed the video. Sorry it took a while, but like, subscribe, love it. I love the feedback, I love the questions, I love the comments, and all I can say is, well, be careful out there.
When I wake up in the morning